Hi, Mickey from Flipping Spain here. Wanted to do an update on how things have met my expectations from before I was in Spain to now that I've been here for about a month and a half looking at properties and learning all the things that I didn't actually know about. So there are a few for sure. I think the first is that while there are cheap properties here, it's very important not to get caught in the bubble of only looking at those because first of all, I've learned why some properties are cheap. Quite often, when you see a 3-bedroom that's a great price, it's because it's on a high floor with no elevator. And that is just a practicality and also something that really matters to buyers and renters here. But that also, if you start looking at all the 3-bedrooms, you understand that the ones in the low price range are a very small percentage. And so that's a good thing in the sense of resale values. If there's room to add value and improve something, you know it can be worth almost double. But then you have to really ask yourself, why is this price so low when everything else is twice as much? So it's learning those finer points. And I guess that's the second point, is learning the finer points of the market. For example, in our deal comparison video, we're going to talk about a property in the Old Town that is a 3-bed, 2-bath, but that could be 2 different 1-beds or a 1-bed and then 2-bed. And it's been for sale for quite some time. On paper, the numbers look fantastic, especially if you invest in the changes needed to make it 2 legal units. So I have to ask myself, why hasn't someone else bought it? And is that because I have a perspective I'm bringing from the outside that local investors don't have? Or is that because they know something that I don't know? For example, I just learned that you can't have a tourist license for your apartment if it is higher than the second floor. Actually, if it's higher than the first floor, which is the American second floor. So I think investors here see things in certain areas only as tourist license, or that you can only make money off a tourist license. And so they don't want to buy anything on the second floor or the third floor, even if it's in a prime area of town without an elevator. So it's learning those little fine things. And of course, you start learning things and it just teaches you what you don't know. So my solution to that is going to be, I've met a really nice real estate agent who speaks really good English. And I'm just offering to take her out for a coffee or for a lunch so that I can sort of pick her brain on a few of these things to get a local perspective. I think the other thing that hasn't really surprised me, but has definitely lived up to my expectation or lived down to my expectation, is that it's really difficult to set up viewings, or it can be really difficult. Some agents are really on it, and those, of course, are the ones that I want to work with. But as I've said before, there are no buyer's agents here. They're all listing agents. So I have to call each individual agent to make appointments. And it can be really hard to get a hold of people sometime. I looked at a property that I really, really liked, but the agent is completely unresponsive. And to me, that just says it's not worth going after the deal, sadly, even though theoretically there will be less competition because she's just not doing a good job of selling it. But I don't want that kind of hassle. So I have improved my Spanish enough to manage a phone call. My solution was also to hire someone just on a case-by-case basis to make appointments for me and have those more detailed conversations about what time and when we can go and yada, yada. So that has worked out well, and she's come along to interpret, which has also been helpful. But then again, now that I understand the routine of what the conversations sound like, it's actually not that hard. I don't mind making a call because they're just going to say, when do you have time? And you just say, I have time these days, and they'll tell you what time they can go. And you say, okay, and then you say, send me a message, send me a text message with the address and the time, and then they'll confirm, and then you can communicate with them in writing, which has been easier because I can use Google Translate. I think some other things that have surprised me is I just assumed that any purchase process would take quite a long time, but I've been told that if you're not using a mortgage, which I'm not, then I would have also learned in Spanish, you can never predict when it's going to be noisy. If you're not using a mortgage, then it's actually quite a speedy process. It can be a week or 2, which is a little bit scary, but also really handy. I might end up just buying a rental that only needs a little bit of improvement. And if I had been able to do that in the first couple of weeks, I would have had it rented by now, because this is the time of year when auxiliaries are coming to Spain and students are getting settled. So I'm not sure what the rental market will be like in a month or two. So that's something I have to learn about as well. One of the other things that this is something I knew before, but has just been reinforced as I've been out looking at things, is that it really helps. On the one hand, you want to keep an open mind because you might see a property, if you're only looking in a certain price range and there's a limited amount of properties in that price range, then you have to be open to looking at a total reno, looking at a ready to go rental, looking at maybe a smaller bedrooms. And that was one thing I thought for sure I wanted a 3-bedroom minimum. But looking at a 2-bedroom again today, that I just think is really interesting. It has a huge terrace, so it's just a bonus feature. And so I've had to kind of keep my expectations open while at the same time not keeping my strategies too open that I was like sort of paralyzed with analysis paralysis or decision making paralysis. So yeah, it's just finding the balance between those things. I guess the thing is like I've just been reminded that you have to keep an open mind when you're going to see properties and just always have the possibilities. Because for me, I always want to have multiple exit strategies. So, for example, if I look at a 2-bedroom, it's something I could live in, rent out a room, but I can only rent out one room, so I can only get so much income from it. If I rent it as a whole property, it's not going to make as much because it's going to cost me the same as a 3-bedroom somewhere else. But if it's unique and I can make it just that much nicer, perhaps I can charge a premium. And then if I can also just improve it marginally so that it's more presentable, then I can probably sell it for more than I bought it for within a relatively short period of time. Not a full flip, but just kind of a, little tidy up flip after keeping it as a rental for a couple of years. So also going out to see things has helped me realize that I do want to buy something in a main city. So in La Rioja, that means Logroño. I went out to visit, some of the pueblos. You can see some of these really amazing houses you can buy for super, super cheap. And there are smaller towns where there are more affordable properties and you think, gosh, maybe I could buy two bedrooms in this town. But really Logroño is, a solid base with a university, with a good workforce for the government and hospitals. And so it's just a much lower risk level. So that is something else I wasn't sure about before I got here, but that I think has really been reinforced. Also, I just really enjoy living here, so why wouldn't other people? Overall, I would say I felt like my expectations of both the positives and the challenges were fairly realistic. If you want to see my video on what I thought before I got here, I'll link that in the end. Otherwise, go have a look at some of the deal analysis videos and just get a feel for what I'm doing here. And stay tuned because should be a video on making a purchase coming up shortly. All right, thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.